We have one of the most absolute wild premises for a news story, and I've got some thoughts on it, but this was not on my bingo card. I did not see this coming into this year, and yet here we are. We'll have to see if things get more wild than this. But in an article titled Department of Homeland Security Wants IRS to Help with Immigration Enforcement from the Washington Post by Marianne Levine and Hannah Ziegler, we do have a headline here that is true, but slightly, perhaps, short selling. Apparently, Donald Trump wants hundreds of IRS agents to help with deportation. This is a murky, worded, sort of wishy-washy headline. We'll just get into it, but I have some thoughts along the way. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has requested that the Treasury Department provide Internal Revenue Service personnel to assist with immigration enforcement, marking the Trump administration's latest effort to expand federal resources to fulfill his campaign pledge to deport more undocumented immigrants. We already get a little bit of color here from the Washington Post. I think you would be hard-pressed to really explicate this as expanding federal resources to fulfill his campaign pledge, especially because one of the things that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this article is the fact that I don't think the government growing is on Donald Trump's agenda, and we'll see in this very article how this is anti-government growth. And the article itself carries on. In a February 7th memo to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Noem cited several areas in which U.S. immigration and customs enforcement needs additional help, including pursuing financial audits of businesses suspected of having undocumented workers, focusing on human smuggling and trafficking, and assisting with apprehensions, detentions, and removals of individuals who are in the country illegally. Remember those hundreds of IRS agents, thousands of IRS agents that the Biden administration hired in order to carry guns? They're going to be counted on here to have those guns with them. Apprehensions, detentions, and removals of individuals who are in the country illegally. This is not an accidental reattribution from Donald Trump. He is reattributing these assets in a direction that is controversial. We will see no shortage of stories of the usual suspects from liberal media, the usual suspects from the liberal side of the aisle in politics that are going to complain about this wholeheartedly. I will just carry on. Noem cited President Donald Trump's Securing Our Borders executive order, which directed the Defense and Homeland Security departments to take all appropriate and lawful action to deploy sufficient personnel along the southern border of the United States. Noem noted that the Treasury Department has qualified law enforcement personnel available to assist with immigration enforcement, and cited recent increases in the IRS services, Internal Revenue Services, workforce and budget. Let me tell you what this is. Let me make this relatable to everyday people. I used to work at Walgreens, so this is probably an idea with which many of you can kind of identify. You've had some type of retail job at some point or a restaurant job at some point. Switch in the names of whatever companies you have to here. But you work at Walgreens, and it's kind of a bad Walgreens. It's failing. You never make budget. The drawers are always short for whoever's counting them in the evenings. It's never faced. The floors are sticky. It's just failing. Well, the district manager comes in, the district manager being the American people in this situation, comes in and fires the store manager. And you were the manager's right-hand guy. You were the assistant store manager. You were the one that took care of everything that was kind of high up that the store manager didn't want to do. You dealt with the ordering and you dealt with the schedule. You dealt with all of these things that the store manager himself kind of decided he didn't have to do anymore. And that's one of the reasons that the store's failing. Well, a new store manager comes in and you're the assistant store manager. You were the old guy's right-hand man. The new store manager looks you in the eyes and says, "Hey, those bathrooms need cleaned, buddy. You've got 6 stalls in a public restroom. They need to be cleaned." Now, what the store manager is doing here in this situation, telling the assistant store manager you to clean the public restroom, is twofold. It's win-win. The store manager is saying, "Hey, this needs to be done and you're not above it." The win-win part is, well, maybe you quit. If you decide you're above cleaning public restrooms, you walk out that door and the old guy's right-hand man is gone. He doesn't have to worry about the guy who refuses to clean restrooms and is part of a losing process. If you do clean the restrooms, well, the restrooms are clean. Donald Trump is going to tell these IRS agents, clean the restrooms. If you think you're too good to clean the restrooms, then walk out. I'm not paying you when you walk out. These situations are not unusual in your and I's world. The reason they're causing so much hubbub right now is that the people in government think that they're too good for these situations. This is a bully tactic. There's no reason to paint over that. Guys, there's bullies in the real world. And if you're not doing your job, you need to be bullied. Every situation in life has a strong arm and a soft arm. At first, maybe we'll try the soft approach. We'll say, "Hey, I don't know if you knew your job also includes cleaning the bathrooms." Now, at Walgreens, at least the Walgreens that I worked at, the cleaning the bathrooms portion of things was actually the cosmetics girl's job, which was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. Every other place that I have worked, I was told that's a boy's job, which I'm not going to get into those arguments, but if you don't understand that cleaning the restrooms are part of your job, maybe you just need to be told. Maybe it wasn't part of the old regime's assignment detail. Now it is. Donald Trump is taking a bully tactic because for 100 years now, the government has not believed that any of this hard work was its to do. Did not believe that any of the rough stuff that has to be done right necessarily had to be done right and in a timely manner and on budget. But it does. Oh, it does. And it seems that these things are going to be handled because these agents here, all of a sudden, you're putting them in one of the jobs that has been looked down and spat upon the most under the previous regime. Remember all of those tricks they tried to play on you, saying that Border Patrol agents were whipping migrants as opposed to corralling their horse, trying to catch up with illegal migrants. That position was looked down upon, was spat upon, and now Donald Trump is coming in and saying, "Hey, new IRS guys, you were Biden's new shiny favorite toy. We need you on the border. Is that cool? Because you can quit. No harm, no foul. I won't hold it against you. Or you can go do this useful task." If they go and do the useful task, well, maybe they're worth their weight in sand. The article itself goes on. Noem wrote that law enforcement officials from the Treasury Department would have the authority to enforce immigration laws. The memo, which was obtained by Washington Post, was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. The proposal for IRS criminal investigators to assist with immigration crackdowns comes at an uncertain time for the agency. Budget improvements in 2022, improvements, questionable word, in 2022 revitalized its staffing and enforcement efforts, but Trump and congressional Republicans have been critical of the agency's increase in funding. Trump moved to install a new IRS commissioner, Billy Long, in December and halted hiring for new criminal investigation agents in January. The IRS's Biden-era commissioner, Danny Werfel, not the Florida quarterback, resigned last month with 2 years left in his 5-year term. I wonder why. Why would you run away from that? Now, it's interesting to me because I am from Kansas City, Missouri. Billy Long, if I know who this is, he is from the 7th District, I think, in Missouri. Also on the rise, Andrew Bailey, the AG from Missouri, and Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri. There is a lot of political talent in the heartland right now, and we may see things trend in that direction in the future. I do wonder what it is that Josh Hawley will be up to. If you haven't YouTubed Josh Hawley, whether you support him or not, Josh Hawley is definitely worth a watch because he's going to teach you things about rhetoric. He's going to teach you things about logic. He's going to teach you things about argument. And wow, if what it reminds me of watching him is sort of, so I have an English literature degree, and I had to take all of these classes from dyed-in-the-wool third-wave feminists and having to go through that sparring on a weekly basis. It kind of reminds me of, so the argument sort of tactics there. In addition to the Treasury Department, DHS is working with the Defense Department to follow through on, by the way, I strip cover lit in the description below. If you're not over on my other channel, that's where I talk about literature. You are welcome over there as well. Short stories, poetry, novel read-alongs, that sort of thing. Defense Department to follow through on Trump's campaign promise to enact what he billed as the largest deportation operation in American history. Last week, so this is one of the strange things here. This is being rumored to be happening not because Noem had requested it, but because Donald Trump is not happy with the numbers being put up in deportations. That is the sort of half-hearted rumor out there. Whether or not it has any gusto to it, I cannot tell. Last week, the Trump administration began to send migrants to Guantanamo Bay, a move that has worried immigrant advocates. This is an interesting statement here, too, because it is immigrant advocates, not illegal immigrant advocates. He's not deporting people who came here legally. That's not what's going on. This is a move against illegal immigrants, and as we have seen, as has been documented, ironically, a lot of these are gang members. So to try to candy coat Tren de Aragua, immigrants from Tren de Aragua, with immigrant advocates, migrants, with this language is questionable at best. The IRS and Treasury Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The IRS... I bet they didn't. The IRS Criminal Investigation Division is tasked with investigating financial crimes such as tax fraud, money laundering, drug trafficking, and identity theft. The division had 2,290 special agents in 2024, a 10% increase from 2022, according to its annual report. Those are the Biden special. Agents in that... Here's an interesting little bit here. Agents in the criminal investigation divisions are law enforcement officers who can make arrests, and they often work alongside the FBI and other federal agencies when responding to financial crime. Employees in the criminal investigation division made up about 3% of the IRS's total workforce in 2024, according to its annual report. In 2024, the criminal investigation division identified more than $2 billion in tax fraud and $7 billion in other financial crimes. It initiated more than 2,600 criminal investigations and obtained more than 1,500 convictions last year, according to its annual report. Now, here's an interesting little number to look at. 2,600 criminal investigations, 2,290 agents. 2,290 agents, 2,600 criminal investigations. So each of them got one. Hooray, boss. Now, another thing to look at here. How many of these are waitresses? So first off, how much do you figure, how much fraud, how much tax fraud is committed by agents in the United States, Trinidad gang members in the United States who have a fake Social Security card? You don't figure any? Number two, all of this $9 billion here, how much of that is waitresses not claiming their tips? See, it's interesting that they try to argue so hard on the left side of things for a raise in minimum wage, for example, for things like this. But then they want to drop the absolute ever-loving ban hammer on anyone who is making tips. Who, by the way, I don't care if first off, Trump has said they will be tax-free. Second off, I don't care if anybody is not claiming their tips. I don't care. The government does not belong in that money. The government does not belong in something like a property tax, for example. There's all sorts of money that I don't think the government has any claim to. And if you are scamming the government out of your property tax, probably not a good idea, but I think you should make the argument in court, right? How you can tax me on something that I already own means that I don't own it, it's yours. Because if I don't pay that property tax, you come and take it from me, which means I spent all of the money and the property is the government's. I don't know how I got here. Anyway, the IRS received a boost in 2022 when congressional Democrats infused it with tens of billions of dollars in funding. I wonder where all of that went. The $80 billion budget expansion came with a primary goal of bolstering the IRS's ability to investigate financial crimes. Why? Because they have a problem with the budget, and instead of finding a way to spend less, they need to find ways to take more from you. A primary goal of bolstering the IRS's ability to investigate financial crimes, which provoked agitation among Republicans who have frequently cast the agency's Criminal Investigation Division as a complicated bureaucracy that scrutinizes average Americans. Well, when you get $80 billion more dollars for 2,600 employees and they find 2,300 crimes, or maybe it was the other way around, I can't remember, it seems like it's just grift. Instead of having Biden's 87,000 IRS agents take more money from Americans, I have requested that they help taxpayers save money by helping ICE round up criminal illegal aliens for deportation, Noem said on X on Monday. This is an absolutely wild headline, something that I did not figure was going to be on the books in 2025. We are, I think today marks 19 days that Donald Trump has been in the White House, and we have seen massive action. Look, maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe, and look, probably there's things that I don't agree with too, and I hope there are things that if you're watching this, I hope there's at least something in that agenda with which you do not agree. Because that suggests that you're not just partisan. That suggests that you are thinking for yourself about these issues. That is a strength that I think the independent to right half of the political apparatus in the United States has, that the left side of the political apparatus in the United States does not have. They refuse to do anything but march in lockstep. However, it is a problem in winning elections because people will take things with which they do not agree and decide, okay, can't do it. This is why the left has steamrolled so many elections in the United States, because they're willing to be foot soldiers, sometimes literally. But it is a very interesting dynamic in the United States that we are seeing so much done. Again, I'm going to say it. Maybe you don't agree with anything that is being done in the United States that is being done by the Trump administration. Maybe you don't believe that Elon Musk should have the keys to buildings, etc. Maybe you don't. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. But you have to admit you're pretty impressed at how much is going on. It's weird because I have followed the Elon Musk story for quite a while. I'm an investor in Tesla. I hope to someday be an investor in SpaceX. If there are shares available for Twitter/X someday, I will invest in that too. Elon Musk just knows too much about making money. I'm going to give my money to him to try to give me more. The guy doesn't sleep. The guy simply does not sleep. Donald Trump, it seems, does not sleep. Donald Trump is going and going and going. And it's funny because these two are just frothing each other up at this point. Like they're in the shower scrubbing each other's backs on the way to work. There's famous stories of Elon Musk sleeping at the Tesla plant because things were going so poorly, and he wanted to be there in order to answer questions, solve problems. And he thought that, hey, an added bonus here is if everyone sees me sleeping under my desk, maybe they'll take it seriously too, right? What happens if an entire country of 330 million people take it a little more seriously? You know, I'm someone who tries to find inspiration in these types of stories of Elon Musk working 115-hour weeks, things like that. In my own history, I have a 100-hour work week. It's just once, but I did it. 60 hours of overtime in a single week. I did that. I got through that. Trying to find inspiration in these stories. What happens? What happens if all of a sudden 330 million people wake up and say, you know what? Let's just give America a couple turns. Let's just take a couple turns. I liken it to, there's a game called Civilization, and I don't know how it's played now. It used to be that you had turns of rebellion if you wanted to switch government. Very realistic in that case, right? I think that it's time for the United States to take a couple turns of isolationism. Isolationism is bad. Isolationism does not work long term. Short term, it's the only way you can get your house in order. I think that it might be time for a couple years of, hey, we've got to figure things out. We've got to come up with some ideas. We've got to figure out the books. Because otherwise, this country, in my belief, is this close to teetering off the edge. I don't think you can look at the way that things are running and think that it's sustainable. In that case, because it's not, what happens when America does falter? What happens when America does fall? What happens when America cracks? Well, guys, there's other people willing and ready to step up, and they won't be nearly as nice as the United States has been. They won't be nearly as forgiving as the United States has been. They won't be nearly as even-handed as has been the United States. These other countries that are willing to step up and be the main voice on the world stage. We do not want them to. Universally, we do not want them to. So that's what I have for this video. If you like or appreciate this sort of thing, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this with other people. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, this is one of the things that I do on this channel. There is a link to Stripped Cover Lit in the description below, where I talk about literature, and I hope to have you back for the next one.